"You're being paranoid, Marcus. She's just going through a hard time," my mother-in-law said while defending my wife's increasingly suspicious behavior. She thought I was just another jealous husband imagining things. But I'd already hired a private investigator and installed security cameras throughout our house. The evidence was sitting in my laptop, but I needed to be absolutely certain before I destroyed two families. My wife Sarah had been working late, 3 nights a week for the past 2 months, always with the same excuse about a big project at her marketing firm. The problem was, I'd called her office on one of those nights, and her assistant told me Sarah had left at her normal time. I'm Marcus, 34 years old, and I thought I had built the perfect family life. Sarah and I had been married for 8 years, with 2 kids, Emma, 6, and Jake, 4. I worked as a senior software engineer at a tech startup, pulling in a solid 6-figure salary that allowed Sarah to work part-time and focus on the kids. We lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and kids rode bikes in the street until dark. But lately, I'd been making stupid mistakes at work, missing deadlines I'd never missed before. My team lead, Jason, had pulled me aside twice in the past month asking if everything was okay at home. I'd brushed it off, said I was just tired, but the truth was I couldn't concentrate on code when my mind was constantly running through Sarah's lies and excuses. My relationship with Sarah's family had always been complicated. Her mother, Patricia, was the type of woman who never thought any man was good enough for her daughter. She'd made subtle comments over the years about how Sarah could have done better, or how I was lucky to have someone like Sarah. Her father, Robert, was more neutral but clearly deferred to his wife on family matters. Sarah's younger brother, Kevin, was a perpetual screw-up who'd been bailated out of financial trouble more times than I could count, usually with money that came from our joint savings account. The first real warning sign came 3 months ago during a family barbecue at Patricia and Robert's house. Sarah had been on her phone constantly, stepping away to take calls and texting throughout the entire afternoon. When I asked her about it later, she said it was work stuff, but I'd noticed she was being secretive about her screen, tilting it away from me whenever I got close. Then came the wardrobe changes. Sarah started buying new clothes, more expensive and revealing than her usual style. She claimed she wanted to feel confident at work, but these weren't exactly professional outfits. The final straw was when I found a receipt in her purse for lingerie from Victoria's Secret lingerie I'd never seen her wear at home. I confronted her about my concerns 2 weeks ago, and that's when her family closed ranks around her. Patricia immediately accused me of being controlling and paranoid. "Marriage requires trust, Marcus," she'd said with that condescending tone she reserved for me. "Sarah is a grown woman who doesn't need to account for every minute of her day to you." Kevin had been even more direct. "Dude, you're being psycho. Sarah's not cheating on you, she's just trying to advance her career." But Kevin had always resented me for being the stable provider while he bounced between jobs and relationships. Even Robert, who usually stayed out of family drama, had pulled me aside to suggest I was overreacting and should give Sarah some space. The unified front they presented made me question my own instincts for about 24 hours. Then I remembered that these were the same people who'd enabled Kevin's drug problem for 2 years before finally admitting he needed help. That's when I decided to stop talking and start documenting. But first, I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. I called my buddy Mike from college, who'd gone through his own messy divorce 3 years earlier. "Marcus, trust your gut," Mike said over beers at our usual sports bar. When my ex was cheating, everyone told me I was being paranoid too. Her friends, her family, even some of our mutual friends. They all said I was imagining things. Turns out she'd been screwing her personal trainer for 6 months. "But what if I'm wrong?" I asked. "What if I blow up my marriage over nothing?" "Then you're wrong and you deal with it," Mike said. "But if you're right and you do nothing, you're going to hate yourself for being a doormat. Besides, if Sarah's innocent, she should welcome the chance to prove it." Mike's words gave me the push I needed. I hired a private investigator named Tom Rodriguez, a former police detective who specialized in infidelity cases. The retainer was $3,000, money I took from my personal account that Sarah didn't have access to. I also installed discrete security cameras around our house, focusing on the garage and front entrance to track Sarah's actual comings and goings. "I've been doing this for 15 years, Tom told me during our initial meeting. "In my experience, when a spouse's behavior changes this dramatically, there's usually a reason. The question is whether you want to know what that reason is." I told him I did, even though part of me was terrified of what he might find. The waiting was the worst part. Every day for 2 weeks, I went through the motions of normal life while knowing that Tom was out there documenting my wife's activities. I snapped at the kids more than usual, which made me feel like shit. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work, couldn't even enjoy watching football on the weekends. Tom's first report arrived on a Friday, and it confirmed my worst fears. Sarah wasn't working late at all. She was meeting a man named David Chen at a hotel about 20 minutes from our house. The photographs were devastating Sarah and David holding hands in the hotel lobby, kissing in the parking lot, entering and leaving the same room on multiple occasions. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Tom's office, staring at the photos and trying to process what I was seeing. This was my wife of 8 years, the mother of my children, the woman I'd trusted completely. The woman who'd been lying to my face every day for months while I worried that I was being paranoid. That night, after the kids were asleep, I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat in my home office looking at the evidence. I must have stared at those photos for an hour, and I'm not ashamed to admit I cried. Not the angry tears you see in movies, but the quiet, exhausted tears of a man whose world had just collapsed. But the investigation revealed something even more disturbing. David Chen wasn't just some random guy Sarah had met. He was a client of her marketing firm, but more importantly, he was going through a messy divorce and had significant financial assets tied up in litigation. Tom's background check revealed that David was looking for ways to hide money from his soon-to-be ex-wife, and Sarah's firm had been helping him with that process. The affair had been going on for 4 months, starting around the time Sarah began mentioning this big project at work. What made it worse was that Sarah had been lying to me about her work schedule, using our shared calendar to block out fake meetings and appointments. She'd been planning this deception systematically, which meant this wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was a calculated betrayal. I spent the weekend reviewing all of Tom's evidence and making copies of everything. The photographs, the timeline, the financial records showing David's payments to Sarah's firm, it was all there. I also discovered that Sarah had opened a separate bank account 2 months ago, something she'd never mentioned to me. When I checked our joint account statements, I found several unexplained cash withdrawals, always in amounts just under the threshold that would trigger automatic notifications. The hardest part was maintaining normal behavior around the kids. Emma had started asking why Mommy was working so much, and Jake had begun acting out at daycare. They could sense something was wrong, even if they couldn't articulate it. I found myself overcompensating, taking them to the park more often, and letting them stay up later than usual, as if extra attention could shield them from what was coming. On Sunday night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Sarah directly, I decided to attend her family's monthly dinner at Patricia and Robert's house. I wanted to see how they'd react when presented with undeniable evidence of Sarah's affair, especially after they'd spent weeks telling me I was paranoid and controlling. I arrived at the dinner with a manila envelope containing copies of Tom's report and photographs. Sarah was already there, playing the role of devoted wife and mother, helping Patricia in the kitchen while the kids played in the backyard with Robert. The scene was so normal, so perfectly domestic, that for a moment I almost doubted what I knew to be true. Patricia greeted me with her usual cool politeness. "Marcus, you look tired. Are you still worrying about those silly suspicions?" She said it loud enough for everyone to hear, clearly intending to embarrass me in front of the family. "Actually, Patricia, I wanted to talk to everyone about that," I replied, setting the envelope on the dining room table. "I think you'll find this interesting." Sarah looked up from the kitchen, and I saw something flicker across her face, not guilt, but calculation. She was trying to figure out what I knew and how much trouble she was in. Kevin was the first to speak up. "Oh great, here we go. Marcus is going to present his conspiracy theory about Sarah having an affair." He said it with a laugh, but I could see he was nervous. "Not a theory," I said, opening the envelope and spreading the photographs across the table. These were taken by a private investigator over the past 2 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia's face went white as she looked at the images of her daughter kissing another man. Robert sat down heavily in his chair, suddenly looking much older than his 62 years. Kevin's mouth actually fell open as he stared at a particularly damning photo of Sarah and David entering the hotel together. Sarah finally spoke, her voice shaking slightly. "Marcus, I can explain this. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I pulled out Tom's written report. "Because according to this investigation, you've been meeting David Chen at the Marriott Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. You've been lying about working late, you've opened a secret bank account, and you've been taking cash out of our joint account to fund this affair." Patricia found her voice first, but instead of the apology I might have expected, she went on the attack. "How dare you spy on our daughter? This is a violation of privacy and trust. What kind of husband hires a private investigator instead of talking to his wife? The kind of husband whose wife has been systematically lying to him for months," I replied, my voice harder than I'd intended. "The kind of husband who tried to talk to his wife and was told by her family that he was being paranoid and controlling. You want to know what kind of husband I am? I'm the kind who's been losing sleep, screwing up at work, and questioning his own sanity because his wife's family convinced him he was imagining things." Robert was studying the photographs with a grim expression. "Sarah, is this true? Are you having an affair?" Sarah's composure finally cracked. "Dad, it's complicated. Marcus and I have been having problems for a while. David understands me in ways that Marcus doesn't. He appreciates me. He appreciates you so much that he's paying your firm to help him hide assets from his wife," I said, pulling out the financial records. "Did you tell your family that part, Sarah? How you're not just cheating on me, but you're also helping your boyfriend commit fraud?" Kevin jumped to his feet. "That's enough, Marcus. You're being cruel. Sarah made a mistake, but you don't have to destroy her like this." "A mistake?" I stood up as well, my voice rising. 4 months of systematic deception is not a mistake. Opening secret bank accounts is not a mistake. Lying to our children about where she's going is not a mistake. This is a calculated betrayal of everything we built together." Patricia was crying now, but her tears felt manipulative rather than genuine. "Marcus, please, think about the children, think about the family. We can work through this. Sarah can end things with this man and you can go to counseling." "The family?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the family that told me I was crazy for noticing my wife was acting suspicious? The family that accused me of being controlling when I asked reasonable questions about her behavior. You all knew something was wrong, but instead of encouraging Sarah to be honest with me, you helped her gaslight me." Sarah was fully crying now, but I noticed she still hadn't apologized or taken responsibility. "Marcus, I love you. I love our family. This thing with David, it just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened." I pulled out the timeline Tom had created. "You've been planning this for months. You changed your work schedule, bought new clothes, opened a bank account, and lied to me every single day. Nothing about this just happened." Robert finally spoke up, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Sarah, how could you do this to Marcus, to your children?" "Don't lecture me, Dad," Sarah snapped, her sadness quickly turning to anger. "You and Mom have been unhappy for years. At least I found someone who makes me feel alive." The comment hit Robert like a physical blow, and I realized Sarah was lashing out at everyone now that her deception was exposed. This wasn't remorse, this was rage at being caught. Patricia's protective instincts kicked in again. "Sarah's right that she deserves to be happy. Marcus, you work all the time. You're never home. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, Sarah wouldn't have needed to find companionship elsewhere." "A better husband?" I was incredulous. "I work to support this family. I pay for this house, the kids' activities, the family vacations. I've never missed a school play or soccer game. I do the dishes, help with homework, and put the kids to bed every night I'm home. What exactly should I have done differently?" But even as I said it, I felt that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. The same anxiety that had been eating at me for months whenever I thought about custody battles and family court. I'd heard too many stories about guys who got screwed over by biased judges, who lost their kids because the system assumed mothers were better parents by default. Kevin tried to mediate. "Look, everyone's upset right now. Maybe we should all take a step back and think about what's best for Emma and Jake. What's best for Emma and Jake is honesty, I said. What's best for them is not having their mother lie to their father every day. What's best for them is not having their family implode because their mother decided to have an affair instead of addressing whatever problems she thought we had. Sarah stood up abruptly. I'm done with this. Marcus, if you want a divorce, fine, but I'm not going to sit here and be humiliated by you and your private investigator photos. Actually, Sarah, we need to talk about the divorce, I said, pulling out the final document from my envelope. I've already consulted with a lawyer. Given the evidence of your affair and the financial irregularities, I'll be filing for divorce and seeking primary custody of the children. The room went silent again. Patricia looked like she might faint. You can't take the children away from their mother, Marcus. That's vindictive. I'm not taking them away from their mother. I'm protecting them from a mother who's been lying to their father for months and potentially engaging in financial fraud. The court will decide what's in their best interest. But inside, I was terrified. What if the court didn't see it that way? What if they looked at Sarah's tears and my evidence and decided I was the vindictive husband trying to punish his cheating wife? What if I lost my kids because some judge thought mothers were inherently better parents? Sarah's anger exploded. You bastard! You planned this whole thing. You came here to humiliate me in front of my family. I came here to give your family a chance to see the truth, I replied. For weeks, you've all been telling me I was paranoid and controlling. I wanted you to see the evidence and understand that I wasn't imagining things. I hoped maybe you'd encourage Sarah to be honest and try to save our marriage. And now? Robert asked quietly. Now I know that this family will protect Sarah no matter what she does, even when it hurts innocent people. You'd rather attack me than hold her accountable for her choices. Patricia was still trying to find an angle. Marcus, please, think about what this will do to the children. Divorce is traumatic. Maybe you could forgive Sarah this one time. This one time? I stared at her. Patricia, your daughter has been having an affair for 4 months. She's been lying to me, to you, to our children. She's been taking money from our joint account to fund her relationship with another man. She's been helping that man hide assets from his wife. This isn't a one-time mistake, this is a pattern of deception and betrayal. Sarah was pacing now, her face flushed with anger. You want to know the truth, Marcus? Fine. Yes, I'm having an affair. Yes, I've been lying to you. And you know what? I'm not sorry. David makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. He appreciates me, he values me, he doesn't take me for granted. I took you for granted. I was genuinely confused. Sarah, I tell you I love you every day. I thank you for everything you do for our family. I support your career, I help with the kids, I try to make time for date nights. What did I do that made you feel unappreciated? You don't understand, she said, but she couldn't articulate what I didn't understand. Kevin tried again. Sarah, maybe you should think about what you're saying. Marcus is a good guy. He's been good to you and the kids. Stay out of this, Kevin, Sarah snapped. You don't understand what it's like to be married to someone who's never home, who's always working, who treats you like a roommate instead of a wife. I work to support our family, I repeated. And I'm home every evening and weekend. Sarah, you're rewriting history to justify your affair. Robert had been quiet through this exchange, but now he spoke up. Sarah, I think you need to take responsibility for your choices. Marcus didn't force you to have an affair. Whatever problems you had in your marriage, there were other ways to address them. Don't you start too, Dad, Sarah said. You and Mom have been miserable for years. At least I had the courage to find happiness. Patricia gasped. Sarah, that's enough. Your father and I have had our struggles, but we've worked through them. We didn't betray our family. No, you just made everyone around you miserable while you worked through them, Sarah shot back. I realized that Sarah was completely unraveling, lashing out at everyone who challenged her narrative. This wasn't the woman I'd married 8 years ago, or maybe it was, and I'd just never seen this side of her before. I'm leaving, I announced. I'll be picking up Emma and Jake from school tomorrow and they'll be staying with me until we can work out temporary custody arrangements. You can't do that, Patricia said. Those children need their mother. Those children need stability and honesty, I replied. 2 things their mother hasn't been providing lately. Sarah stepped toward me. Marcus, please, let's go home and talk about this privately. We don't need to involve lawyers and courts. We can work this out. Sarah, you've had 4 months to work this out. You chose to have an affair instead. You chose to lie to me instead of addressing whatever problems you thought we had. You chose to involve David Chen instead of involving me. It's too late for private conversations." I gathered up the photographs and documents, leaving copies on the table. "I'll be in touch about custody arrangements. My lawyer will be contacting you about the divorce proceedings." As I walked toward the door, Patricia made one last attempt. "Marcus, please don't do this. Think about what's best for everyone." I turned back to face the family that had spent weeks gaslighting me and protecting a cheater. What's best for everyone is the truth. What's best for everyone is accountability. What's best for everyone is not enabling destructive behavior. "And what about forgiveness?" Robert asked. "What about giving people second chances?" "Robert, forgiveness requires genuine remorse and changed behavior. Sarah just spent the last hour justifying her affair and blaming everyone else for her choices. She's not sorry she had an affair, she's sorry she got caught." I left the house with Sarah's family in chaos behind me. Patricia was crying, Robert looked defeated, Kevin was trying to calm everyone down, and Sarah was still alternating between anger and self-pity. The drive home was a blur. I kept thinking about Emma and Jake, about how their lives were about to change forever. I thought about the house we'd bought together, the dreams we'd shared, the future we'd planned. All of it was gone now, destroyed by Sarah's choices and her family's willingness to enable her. When I got home, I poured myself another whiskey and sat in my home office, staring at the copies of Tom's report. Then I did something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I called my dad. "Marcus, it's late, son. Everything okay?" "Dad, I need to ask you something." "How do you know when you're doing the right thing, even when everyone's telling you you're wrong?" There was a pause. "What's going on, Marcus?" I told him everything. The affair, the lies, the family's reaction, my plans for divorce and custody. My dad listened without interrupting, which was his way. "Son," he said finally, "I've been married to your mother for 38 years. We've had our ups and downs, but we've never lied to each other. Not about the big stuff. What your wife did, that's not a marriage problem, that's a character problem. And character problems don't get fixed with counseling and good intentions. But what if I'm wrong about custody? What if the court thinks I'm being vindictive? Marcus, you've got evidence. You've got documentation. You've got a pattern of deception and financial fraud. Any judge worth his salt will see that. But more importantly, you're thinking about what's best for those kids, not what's best for you. That's what good fathers do." The next morning, I picked up Emma and Jake from school as planned. I'd prepared age-appropriate explanations for why they'd be staying with me for a while, focusing on how much I loved them and how none of this was their fault. Emma asked if Mommy was in trouble, and I told her that sometimes adults make mistakes and need time to figure things out. Sarah called my phone 17 times that day. I didn't answer. She left voicemails ranging from apologetic to angry to desperate. In one message, she claimed she'd ended things with David. In another, she accused me of being vindictive and cruel. In a third, she begged me to think about the children. Patricia called too, leaving a message about how I was tearing the family apart and how I needed to be the bigger person. Kevin sent a text saying he understood why I was upset, but asking me to consider reconciliation for the kids' sake. But the most telling call came from my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who'd lived on our street for 30 years. "Marcus, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted you to know that some of us have noticed the changes in Sarah lately. The way she's been dressing, the new car she's been driving, the strange hours. We didn't want to say anything, but we were worried about you." It turned out that several neighbors had noticed Sarah's behavior but hadn't wanted to get involved. They'd seen her leaving the house in the evenings when she was supposed to be working late. They'd seen the expensive clothes and jewelry that had appeared over the past few months. They'd watched her transform from a suburban mom into someone they barely recognized. "The thing is," Mrs. Henderson continued, "some people in the neighborhood have been talking, saying there must be something wrong with you if your wife is looking elsewhere. But those of us who know you, who have seen how you are with those children, we know better. We wanted you to know that." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd been so focused on Sarah's betrayal and her family's reaction that I hadn't considered how the community might perceive the situation. The idea that people might think I was somehow to blame for my wife's affair was infuriating. My lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, was a family law specialist who'd been recommended by a colleague. She reviewed all of Tom's evidence, and confirmed that I had a strong case for both divorce and primary custody. The photographs and financial records would be admissible in court, and Sarah's affair would likely impact any alimony considerations. The secret bank account is particularly damaging, Jennifer explained. It shows premeditation and financial deception. Combined with the affair, it paints a picture of someone who's been systematically dishonest with her spouse. What about her family's reaction? I asked. They're all saying I should forgive her and try to save the marriage. That's not uncommon, Jennifer said. Families often close ranks around the cheating spouse, especially when they're confronted with evidence. It's a defense mechanism. But legally, their opinions don't matter. What matters is the evidence of adultery and financial deception. And custody? I asked, voicing my biggest fear. What are the chances I'll get primary custody? Jennifer was honest. In cases involving adultery and financial deception, especially when there's evidence of the affair affecting the children's stability, courts tend to favor the non-cheating spouse. The fact that you've been the primary breadwinner and have maintained a stable home environment works in your favor. But I won't lie to you, some judges still have biases about mothers being better parents. We'll need to present a compelling case. 2 weeks later, Sarah finally agreed to meet with me and our respective lawyers to discuss temporary custody and support arrangements. She looked terrible, tired, stressed, and much thinner than usual. David Chen had apparently ended their relationship when he learned about the private investigator and the potential legal implications. "Marcus, I want you to know that I'm sorry," Sarah said as we sat down in Jennifer's conference room. "I made terrible choices and I hurt you and the kids. I want to try to make this right." "What does making it right look like to you?" I asked. "I want to go to counseling. I want to work on our marriage. I want to be the wife and mother you and the kids deserve." Her lawyer, a middle-aged man named Frank Morrison, looked uncomfortable. "Sarah, we've discussed this. Given the evidence, reconciliation might not be the best strategy." "I don't care about strategy," Sarah said. "I care about my family," Jennifer spoke up. "Sarah, you've been having an affair for 4 months. You've been lying to Marcus, taking money from joint accounts, and helping another man hide assets from his wife. What's changed that makes you think you can suddenly be trustworthy?" "I ended things with David," Sarah said. "I realize I made a mistake. I want to focus on my family now." "You ended things with David because he dumped you when he found out about the investigation," I said. "That's not the same as choosing your family." Sarah's composure cracked again. "Fine, you're right. David ended things with me, but that doesn't mean I don't want to save our marriage. I love you, Marcus. I love our children." "Sarah, love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. For 4 months, you chose David over our family. You chose lies over honesty. You chose deception over trust. One conversation doesn't undo 4 months of betrayal." Frank tried to redirect the conversation. "Let's focus on the practical matters. Sarah is willing to agree to joint custody with Marcus having primary physical custody. She's also willing to waive any claim to alimony." "What about the secret bank account?" Jennifer asked. "And the money taken from the joint account?" Sarah looked at Frank, who nodded. "Sarah will return all money taken from the joint account and close the separate account. She'll also provide full financial disclosure for the divorce proceedings." "And her involvement with David Chen's financial affairs?" Jennifer pressed. "That's a separate matter," Frank said quickly. "Sarah's firm is handling that internally." After the meeting, I felt emotionally drained but legally vindicated. Sarah's willingness to agree to my terms showed that she and her lawyer knew they had a weak case. The affair, the financial deception, and the evidence Tom had gathered made it impossible for her to claim she was an innocent victim. But the real vindication came 2 weeks later when David Chen's divorce case exploded in the local news. His wife's attorney had discovered the asset hiding scheme and filed criminal charges against both David and Sarah's marketing firm. Sarah wasn't personally charged, but she was fired from her job and became a key witness in the prosecution. The news coverage was brutal. Local reporters interviewed David's wife, who painted a picture of a man who'd been systematically hiding assets with the help of his mistress and her marketing firm. Sarah's name was mentioned in every article, along with details about her affair and her role in the financial fraud. Suddenly, the narrative in our community shifted dramatically. The whispers about what I might have done to drive my wife to cheat were replaced by sympathy for the betrayed husband who'd uncovered a financial fraud scheme. Neighbors who'd been cool toward me started stopping by to offer support. Parents at the kids' school began including me in their social circles. Patricia called me after the news broke. "Marcus, I owe you an apology." I didn't understand how serious this was. I thought Sarah was just having a midlife crisis, but this is much worse. "Patricia, I tried to tell you that Sarah's behavior was more than just an affair. She was involved in financial fraud. She was systematically lying to everyone, but you chose to attack me instead of holding her accountable." "I know," she said, her voice heavy with regret. "I was trying to protect my daughter, but I ended up enabling her. I see that now." "What changed your mind?" I asked. Seeing her on the news, being questioned by reporters about her involvement in financial fraud, realizing that she could have gone to prison if she'd been more involved, understanding that you were trying to protect our grandchildren from all of this. The day after the confrontation, Robert called me with a quiet apology. "Marcus, I was wrong about you," he admitted. "You were trying to save your family and we made it harder. I'm sorry." Kevin's apology came through a text. "Dude, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. Sarah really messed up and we made it worse by defending her. You're a good guy, you didn't deserve any of this." But the hardest conversation was with Emma and Jake. As the divorce moved forward, I had to gently explain why Mommy wouldn't be living with us anymore. I kept things age appropriate, telling them that sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. Emma, just 6, looked up at me with eyes far wiser than her age and asked, "Did Mommy lie to us?" I nodded and told her the truth. Then came the real gut punch. "Are you going to lie to us too, Daddy?" I held her hand and promised, "No, sweetheart, I'll always tell you the truth even when it's hard." Jake, just 4, simply wanted reassurance he'd still see his mom. I told him yes and reminded him Mommy loved him and none of this was his fault. The divorce finalized 6 months later. Sarah had supervised visitation at first, later becoming unsupervised once she completed counseling. The marketing scandal made her unemployable in her field. I kept the house in full custody. She moved in with her parents, which strained their marriage to the point Patricia and Robert separated. Financially, things were clear. Sarah waived alimony, returned the $8,000 from the secret account, and covered half the investigator and legal fees. But my real victory wasn't financial. It was protecting my kids and reclaiming my integrity. The community that once whispered behind my back now stood behind me. Even Mrs. Henderson hosted a neighborhood barbecue in support. Emma and Jake adjusted beautifully. Stability and honesty allowed them to thrive. Sarah remained part of their lives but no longer defined them. 2 years later, she sent a letter. It was formal, apologetic, and reflective. She said she understood the damage she caused and thanked me for protecting the children. It sounded sincere, but I wasn't sure if it was genuine or just image repair. And honestly, I realized I no longer cared. I never remarried, though I dated occasionally. My focus remained on raising Emma and Jake, building my career, and creating a stable, honest home for my children. Patricia and Robert eventually reconciled, though their relationship never fully recovered from the strain of Sarah's scandal. They remained good grandparents to Emma and Jake, and Patricia occasionally expressed gratitude for how I'd handled the situation. "You saved our family," she told me once. "Not the family we thought we had, but the family we actually needed to be." Kevin grew up significantly after watching his sister's life implode. He often said that seeing the consequences of Sarah's choices had been a wake-up call about his own behavior. Mike, my buddy who'd encouraged me to trust my instincts, became a regular presence in our lives. He helped with carpools when I had to work late, took the kids to baseball games, and provided the kind of male friendship that helped me navigate single parenthood. "You did the right thing," he told me one evening as we watched the kids play in the backyard. "It took balls to stand up to all of them, but you protected your kids and your integrity." That's what real men do. In the end, the family that emerged from the chaos was smaller but stronger. Emma and Jake had a father who had proven he would fight for them. I had children who knew they could trust me completely. And we all learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone else's lies.